Good morning, Opening Pathways viewers. This is Tom Lenoble, and I am so excited about my guest today. I've been waiting for it, and here we are finally, Alyece Smith. Alyece, it is so great to have you today. Alyece is the CEO of Socially Ausome, and also she has a nonprofit she's going to tell us about, Cadence Corner, that I know you're going to love to hear about. Alyece, welcome to Opening Pathways.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm very grateful to be here and just share a little bit about what we're doing in Mississippi.
Excellent. Alyece and I had a little talk before, and we had some things in common about Mississippi. And if I end up by the day saying y'all or naked to everyone, I'll know it's because I was talking to somebody in the South and it brought it back out. So, Alyece, I'm so thrilled you're here. I need to know right from the start.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the business and about the nonprofit. But what I really want to know is what sparked your idea to start it.
Yeah. So I'll take you back to 2017, which feels like forever ago. But my son, Caden, was diagnosed on the autism spectrum disorder in 2018. But 2017 is when a lot of the early signs were showing, and we really knew what was going on. But because of lack of services, really trying to get into a specialist to do a diagnosis was a struggle for us. So, long story short, I was in corporate doing digital marketing for a very large franchise in the quick service industry. And so I was already doing marketing. I was working 9 to 5, sometimes a little bit longer than that, while also trying to get him into therapies, get him, all the places he needed to be able to get the quality of healthcare that I wanted him to have to thrive. We know that early intervention is key when it comes to all kids learning, or especially special needs. So back then, I was struggling to get him everywhere I needed to get him and having to turn down therapy options because they would call and say, oh, we have an opening all of a sudden at 11, someone canceled, can you be here? And with my job and where he was located and the travel, I could not make it work. So 2022, I finally got the guts to quit my job and decided I was going to start my business. And I named it Socially Ausome, spelled AUSOME, as a nameplay on being an autism mom. You'll often see t-shirts and things that say you are awesome, and it's just a nameplay on having a spectrum child or being on the spectrum in general. So that's always been the root of why I started. And that led to me growing Socially Ausome. And that's evolved since 2022. I originally started doing done for you social media services because that's what I did in corporate. That was what I knew best. And now it's evolved into helping neurodivergent entrepreneurs build businesses that actually work with their brain. So I'm sure we'll dive into a lot of that even further today. But the business was started because of my son. And as I continued to drive awareness for neurodivergent entrepreneurs and myself and becoming more clear on my own neurodivergency, I had this dream one night about starting a nonprofit, and I had the name and everything. I woke up and I was like, it's Cadence Corner. My husband's, what are you talking about? I'm like, we're going to start this. And I had put it on my vision board for actually 2027. And I just knew that I needed to be at this certain place before I started a nonprofit, right? I needed this certain elevation or status, so to speak. And late last year, I was having a lot of messages come from moms that were where I was in that 1 year period of waiting to get him diagnosed and finding services. And I don't know, sometime in November last year, I was like, why am I waiting? Like, it really doesn't cost that much to get started. I will do whatever I have to do to get fundraising going. And we filed the paperwork. We got our official 501c3 for the nonprofit back in December of 2024. We launched in June of this year, 2025. And somewhere in that period between November and the launch, I was like, all right, now I got to publish the book. So I rushed up the book so that we could have some seed money. And now I'm helping entrepreneurs that are neurodivergent and now families and children on the spectrum. So
Amazing.
Now it feels like it's come full circle, and it's incredible.
Yeah, what a story. Now, viewers, you know something about me. I'm all about risk, resilience, and reinvention. And if I had to make a poster with somebody's face on it, it would be Alyece's. This is how you do it. You take these things that happen to us in life, they're unexpected. I call them terrible gifts. We never want them, but we often get a gift out of them. Sometimes we don't see it for a week, a month, even 10 years, but you can see what happened. Alyece put this into action. Ah, so empowering. So here's what I know to be true. Those of us, most of us, have some reason, something in our backstory that gave us, I'm just going to call it the oomph to do what we do, to be brave and take on what we take on, that comes in a package that what life delivers to us. Who was that for you in your early days?
Oh, that's a really good question. So going back in 2020, we were all kind of locked up and working from home, and the kids were out of school. And I don't know if you remember, but Heather Land is her name, and at the time she was going viral originally on Snapchat, and then went viral on Facebook. And if I say it, a lot of people that are listening are going to remember, but she would make these funny videos about she always ended it saying, "I ain't doing it." And she had the big mouth Snapchat filter. Okay. And I know this sounds wild, but I had consumed so much of her content in 2020, just trying to find a way to laugh about what was going on. We all kind of needed a laugh. My kids were daycare was closed for my daughter, school were closed for my oldest son, and then obviously Caden, we're still trying to do therapy, but in a modified way with the masks, and it was terrible. And my husband was offshore at the time, so he worked in the oil field. He would be gone 3 weeks at a time, so it was just me, these three kids, running my household like chaos. And so I would just watch her, and she was so funny. Well, in 2022, I was actually part of a nonprofit that has different charters, junior auxiliary, very common here in the South. I don't know that they have them further north yet, but I was a founding member of that nonprofit. And you do a 5-year commitment. So we go to our annual conference, and she happened to be the keynote speaker. And she stood on stage and talked about how, she online appeared just to be this funny comedian, but in actuality, her life was somewhat crumbling in the background. And those videos were a way of her cheering herself up. And originally, they were only sent to her friends, they were private. And one friend dared her to put it online, it blew up. Now she is a keynote speaker. And she just talked about how taking that risk, and even if you embarrass yourself, can really change everything. And she stood on stage and she said, I ain't doing it. She said her key line, but then she said, I challenge everyone in this audience to do it scared, do it afraid. And I had these thoughts in the back of my mind for months about, why not? I need to find a different way to make money. I need to find something that's more flexible with my schedule. And I looked at a friend and I said, I'm going to quit my job at the end of this weekend. And she was, where did that come from? That's so random, right? Well, there's all these nuances, right? All these signs. And if you don't pay attention to them, you will miss them. But I had proposed a project as part of that nonprofit, and we called it the Autism Acceptance Project. And twice a year, we were hosting just very small, almost like a birthday party, sensory friendly events, though, because it's very common for children on the spectrum to not be able to comfortably attend these events. Parents don't end up bringing them because of overstimulation. And these children aren't getting the experiences that your average child would get. So after the keynote was on Friday, Saturday night was the award ceremony. The project I had proposed, which obviously was inspired by my son, won 2 national awards that night. And that was like the another right? Heather stood up there. It brought it full circle, because at the darkest time of my life, I would just laugh my ass off at her videos. And then the project I proposed won 2 national awards, and I sure did. I left in tears, absolute tears that night, happy tears. And I voice memoed in my phone my resignation letter.
I
And
love this story.
yep. And I sent it the next morning. I slept on it just to make sure I didn't have any typos, more or less. And I sent it the next morning. And I told my husband, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know that everything that happened this weekend just points that I do have the gumption to figure it out. And
Here you are. So tell me
she,
this.
yeah.
Tell me this. Have you ever doubted your vision?
Oh, 100%. all the time. I still do. I still do. And as someone with neurodivergency, it's very common for us to do things we call ruminating, and there's RSD, which is rejection sensitive dysphoria. So a lot of that is just wired in my brain. But I've done so much research and learning about neurodivergency over the last year that I do find myself being able to talk myself off the ledge. And of course, mentorship and having people in your circle is very important as well. But yeah, I still doubt my vision
Yes.
all the time.
Yeah, I find people that do catastrophic thinking, where the worst that could possibly happen, which of course never comes true. Every now and then I catch myself in the middle of it. I'm like, wake up here. So
Yeah.
tell me this, Alyece,
Yeah.
what personal values have guided you along here?
Ooh, that's a loaded question, Tom. That's a loaded question, but I love it. I love it. Integrity is definitely rooted in me to the core. I am a person that will find any way to right a right and right a wrong. I have always been just, if it's wrong, it's wrong. And I'm willing to speak against the grain to prove that. And so integrity's been a huge value for us doing the right thing, both in my business, something I'm obviously trying to instill in my children, and then now in the nonprofit, speaking out for things that are changing for special needs children and special needs adults and why they shouldn't be changing or what, how that affects them. So integrity is probably the biggest value for us. And
I
then
love it.
em- empathy as well. So, as someone who has lived this pain, I very often say, turn your pain into passion, your passion into purpose, your purpose into profit. And so for me, as someone who's lived this, everything I teach is from lived experience. I do have empathy for those moms who are trying to get diagnosed or just got the diagnosis and are overwhelmed by the systems and the support or the lack thereof. And then the business owners who maybe are in a situation where I was of, I'm having to put my job before my children, and that's not how I want to live life any longer. But if I don't have the job, how do I pay for the therapies? And so that challenge, empathy is a big one for me. You do need to be able to put yourself in their position currently to be able to lead them out of it.
Yes, yes. So tell me this. If someone was watching you back in the old job before you resigned, what would surprise them most about Alyece and what you've accomplished today?
Oh man, I think just honestly my mindset. So back then, I always say I am wired to play devil's advocate. I do like to play devil's advocate, and maybe that is my catastrophic thinking of what could go wrong. I'm really good at it, and it's actually been a I'd say benefit in my business because obviously I'm coaching in my business entrepreneurs on where they are currently and how to get where they want to go. Well, in order to do that, I need to be able to poke holes in what they're currently doing to show them where the gaps are, where sales or leads might be falling through the cracks. How do we build systems? So in the business side, it is a good thing, but I've changed obviously the way I present it and the mindset around it. And so when all of these things were happening to me, of course, I felt personally attacked. Why me? God, why me? Why is this happening? Or, feeling like I was just set up for failure. And so back then, I probably was extremely negative sometimes when speaking with people
Yeah.
about, well, this is going to happen and now this, and I'll never get this done. And having to self lead as an entrepreneur and be your own accountability system does do a lot for your mindset of like, okay, this is a problem, but is it life or death? Is it catastrophic? And then how do we fix it? And so I think that would probably be the biggest thing that would shock people is when they talk to me now, it's more inspiring
I love
versus,
this.
negativity.
Yes, probably because you're doing what your heart says you should be doing. Yes.
Right. I do feel like when you are when you put impact over income, everything changes.
Yes. What challenge caught you completely off guard while you've been doing this?
Mm, it's a lot of, oh, there's so many. So with the business, just the challenge of setting boundaries, I think, has been the biggest one for me. I've always been, and of course in corporate, you're taught the customer is always right, and the customer, do everything for them. I even got certified as a customer experience officer through the DeJulius Group, which is an amazing training. Definitely recommend for anyone in customer service. But you're taught to do anything and everything and go above and beyond to make customers happy. And while I still believe that's true, I also know as an entrepreneur, not everyone is my ideal customer. Not everyone should be my customer. And so setting those boundaries of, obviously, my free time is not free time. And if someone is not the right customer, and unfortunately I've gone above and beyond to try to make them happy, and absolutely nothing will make them happy, maybe they should not be my customer. And
Yeah.
just really putting that, for my own mental health sake, at the forefront of my business is the boundaries. And I will do whatever I can do to go, like I said, above and beyond. And I always strive to over deliver. But at a certain point, it is my business and I do make the decisions.
It's
And
true.
following that took a while for me.
It's true. I remember my days in customer service, and every now and then you had to guide someone to, you know, maybe this isn't the place for you. But I'm even going to help you find the place that might be for you, but this isn't the place for you, right? Tell me, tell me this. What did those early days teach you about trust?
Mm. I think I'm still learning about trust, Tom. I think I'll probably always be learning about it, but a lot of things. So, you know, not everyone, and this, I'm trying to stay super positive. Not everyone will be happy for you. Not everyone will root for you. And so there were times where I got really excited, and maybe I was in a mentorship program and I had someone that I thought was my mentor, and I told them an idea that I had, like, hey, I really want to introduce this into my business. And lo and behold, they launched my idea, help from under me. That is a true story that happened. Also, just understanding that not everyone will be happy for you. And so there will be people in your life that may just go their separate ways, or you might have to go your separate way and be okay with that. But I
Yes.
have found, I truly believe most people are good people, but I have found that there are people out there that will um, gain your trust just to gain information. And you have to have, I like to make gut led decisions because my heart, my head will absolutely talk me out of everything. So you have to really develop, a strong sense of understanding. And if that happens, not let it stop you, not let it, hold you back, but don't make the same mistake twice.
Yeah, I think these are some of the lessons we learn of how we start following our heart, and sometimes the people that see our success that have been in our circle
Mhm.
aren't supposed to be in our circle anymore. They can't step up or go along with it or accept it, and it brings some unique challenges that aren't always easy, but require us to look at what we're doing and keep going, right?
But,
So tell me this, how does Alyece decide when to pivot or
mm,
push through?
yeah, I have very, as I said earlier, like I try to look for these signs. Maybe that's woo woo sounding, for lack of better words, but for me it's been where really doing self-reflection and digging deep inside and sitting with things sometimes in quiet, which is very hard for me as someone with ADHD and my brain's always running. But just feeling, if I feel like this is it, and I usually will talk it out with my husband. He's an amazing supporter for me. He is better at playing devil's advocate than I am. So sometimes I'm like, I didn't want to hear that. That's not what I wanted to hear. I wanted you to just say, yes, believe it. like, come on. But I also have a 48-hour rule. And so, because I can be impulsive, that's part of neurodivergency, and I have, burned things down too soon before and pivoted too soon before. So I do have like a 48-hour rule where I'll write my idea down and I'll put a 48-hour calendar invite on my calendar. And if I still have this excitement about it in 48 hours, then okay, now let's look into how do we make this change? But my gut usually tells me if something is meant to be. And I think it's just me leaning into that desire for trusting myself.
Yeah, yeah. Viewers, Alyece is sharing lots of wisdom here today. I love when these podcasts turn into wisdom that we can use in our daily lives. The 48-hour review with rule with the invite to yourself, not so you don't miss it. Brilliant. So tell me this. I know in my life, my career, my journey, some of my biggest mistakes have led to my biggest successes. Have you had a mistake that's led to a success?
Yeah, I would say so. So, a few months back, let's see, maybe about January of this year, I openly talked about my ADHD. I had not openly discussed my own neurodivergency online for years, or probably ever. In private, yeah. So when I would have a client say, well, my ADHD is taking control or whatnot, I'd say, look, sister, like, same, but I have the expertise that can help you deal with this. So let's build systems that work with you. But prior to that, no, I had not talked about my own ADHD or my own neurodivergency, because if you did, you weren't hireable. No one would want, who would want to pay me because of the stigmas around ADHD. You're not focused, or you're scattered, or you're chaos. Who would want to pay me to work with me if they knew that? And so I think it was back in January, actually, I mentioned it on a live training on like a Facebook Live. And I had several DMs of people that were very much, supportive and like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. This makes so much sense. Like, thank you for sharing that. But then I also had a few other people in my circle in a group program I was in that were like, I don't know if that's a good idea. And I'm like, well, I guess we'll find out. And so after receiving a few of the comments I had about why would you openly share that, or I don't know, I think I would hide that. Maybe it was just me being like, I'm going to do what people are telling me not to do. Maybe it was just me trying to prove people wrong. But I sat with it for 48 hours and I told my husband, I was like, I don't know why, but I feel like this brings everything full circle. I said, because I am advocating so much for children who are neurodivergent in the nonprofit. I've been advocating for years, just as a mom. But now here we have this nonprofit that's up and coming. Why am I not helping adults that are neurodivergent? Like, why am I not? Because we know neurodivergent people are 500% more likely to be an entrepreneur. Why am I not helping both? And so I did somewhat burn my business down, I guess you could say, in January, February of this year. And I said, I am going all in on
Wow.
serving neurodivergent entrepreneurs. And this connects everything. And so it was, I guess you could say, a mistake based on some of the comments I had gotten about, oh, I wouldn't put that out there. That's not a good idea. And I said, I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah, I love it. I love this. This is what my book is about, really, with for the reader, is how we have these disparate parts of our lives, some things that we think we should keep private, or we have shame for, or they seem totally outrageous, or people just won't understand. And indeed, who we are today is the sum of all the parts of what we've been. And without one of them, we wouldn't be who we are today. And when
Exactly.
we are who we are, like you just described, it's amazing how I'll just call it the universe, love, God, whatever, opens up doors for us and lets us be who we are, because who else are we going to be?
Yeah.
So here's what I want to know.
Okay.
What impact are you most proud of? I'm not interested in professionally. We've got that. personally, what impact are you most proud of, Alyece?
The impact of driving this awareness for early screening for children on the spectrum, and the amount of moms that I have spoken to or worked with, and I will in the future, just understanding that it's not the end of the world for them to have a diagnosis. And I know that seems extreme, but when it happens, that's exactly how you feel. The day
Yeah.
my son was diagnosed, the doctor handed me a 3-page packet of printed, it didn't even look like they had enough ink to print that thing. It was barely legible, of just phone numbers. Here's your son. He has mild to moderate autism. Here's some resources you can plug into. We'll see you back in a year. And for me, at the time, it's like there children on the spectrum, or people on the spectrum in general. If you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism. Everyone is different. Everyone has different symptoms, different, overstimulation, and how they overcome these challenges. And so for me to walk out of a specialist office with absolutely no direction, I was grieving. And I was grieving the life that I thought I would have. Caden was actually a fertility baby. So 5.5 years and a whole lot of money for shots and meds and doctors to have him. And all of that time I had dreamed of him being a football player, and what his life would look like, and getting married. And then, not to say any of those things will never happen, but at the time, leaving that doctor's office, that's how I felt. And so there was this overwhelming grief of, what did I do? How did I cause this guilt? But also, he won't be able to live the life that I hoped he would have. And so a lot of that is in my book, but understanding, one, that's not always the case, right? My son is thriving these days, and he'll be 10 next month. So there is absolutely no telling where life is going to take him.
Right.
But being able to help other moms through that, because that was a very, very dark time for me. And again, being the negative person I was back then, it was very much the end of my life. I just thought it was over. I would never be able to do anything. We weren't going to take family vacations. We weren't going to be able to travel. 20 months later, here comes his sister. So she threw a wrench in all of it, but helping women through that part of their lifetime, because it can make or break not only, them as a mother, and how they parent their child, and how successful their child can become. Because if they can't get out of that place, if they can't regulate, there is absolutely no way they can regulate the child. And so it rolls down to the child when the mother is regulated, or the father.
Yeah.
So, or the primary caregiver, whoever that person is. So making that impact. And we've already done that for so many. And I'm just motivated by how many more we will
Yeah.
help.
What do you protect most when no one's watching?
Oh, okay. Let me think. This was when I don't know. What do I protect most? I mean, my first thought always goes to my children. There is absolutely nothing. There is nothing or no one that will get between me and what is right for my kids. Nothing. And I am a bear, for lack of better words, when it comes to my kids. So whether it is them becoming good people and maybe having a consequence for, doing something wrong, but also when something is done wrong for them. And I will do whatever it takes. So that's my first thought is just my kids. And I do that. Well, I do that when people are watching too. I will always do that when people are watching too.
Yeah,
But
good.
I always get my kids and my marriage, to be honest. Maybe that's one that people don't see, is protecting my marriage. I think that I know that there is a much higher divorce rate when there is special needs involved in the home. And so my husband and I have been married since 2011. So we're looking at 14 years now married, and that's rare to find. And that is not without challenges. We have had more challenges than most people have in a lifetime, but just making sure that there is one-on-one time with him and I, and we do take what we call adultcations once or twice a
Good.
year. If it's 1 or 2 days, it's a priority for us to be able to work as a team and make sure our marriage is put at the forefront, because it does take both of us. And I don't think it should suffer from, outside factors that maybe weren't in our control. So that's probably something I don't talk about a lot. That would be something more when no
Yeah.
one's working.
What a beautiful thing to share with the viewers, of this idea of what we prioritize to protect in the midst of all that goes on in life.
Yeah,
Sometimes we get it out of order of taking care of others, then taking care of ourselves last. Well,
yeah,
I think it's take care of yourself, take care of those that are dear to you. The rest of it will fall into place.
yeah.
Tell me this. What's your boldest vision for your business and your nonprofit in the
Mm.
next 5 years?
Hmm. Okay. So ultimately, I want to be a keynote speaker. Like, that is, I want to travel, I want to talk, I love to teach, I'm very tactical when I think. And how I teach is usually very tactical because my brain has to have things step by step by step. So I don't like the concepts. I don't like the gray area. Like, tell me what to do so I can go do it. And so I really want to build Socially Awesome into speaking and traveling and speaking and meeting entrepreneurs and driving that awareness globally. Like, that is my ultimate goal with that. As far as the nonprofit goes, uh, the boldest vision is for us to have a ABA therapy center here in Hancock County, Mississippi. I did send a proposal to the state of Mississippi for a few $1 million for that, but right now, with everything going on and in the world, I'm sure it's sitting on someone's desk, and we're going to keep driving for that. But between now and the time that happens, we also have a pretty bold vision of having what we call a mobile sensory unit. And so we are currently campaigning and fundraising for that. We know here locally to us, we have children that are sitting on waiting lists to receive therapy up to 12 months. And if early intervention happens before the full brain development at 5, and the children are sitting on the waiting list for years, they're not getting what they need to get early to be as successful as they could be. And so we have a plan of a mobile sensory unit. And just to kind of put it in perspective, it's almost think of like a big bus that would come to you, and inside it has it's set up like a sensory gym, so to speak. And our challenge with that would be to be able to bring this to children at community events and schools and therapy centers, where the children can go in and have some of that therapy in the mobile unit, while we also educate the parents on things they can do at home while they're sitting on the wait list. And so kind of empowering the parents to take charge a little bit while you wait for the medical providers to have openings or magically appear, because there are some areas in our little Gulf Coast that don't even have any providers local to them. So that is our current big goal. And we would love to bring that to life by April of 2026 during Autism Awareness Month next year. So a lot happening on both sides.
Yeah, something tells me your dreams, your goals, and your visions will be realized, Alyece.
Thank
Tell me
you.
this.
Yeah.
What are you most hopeful about for the world today?
Mm. Acceptance. Acceptance is a big piece. I think that we are currently, when it comes to talking about neurodivergency, whether it be autism or ADHD, I think we are in the awareness phase right now with everything going on and all of the national announcements and things around autism as a whole. People are starting to become aware, even if they don't have a loved one. Previous to now, it was, of course, we were aware if we knew someone with autism or we knew someone with ADHD. But other than that, it was kind of like, well, that doesn't apply to us. Now it's a lot of these announcements coming and what's happening in the world in general. I think we are in the awareness phase. So to move past the awareness phase, okay, we're aware of the problem. How do we actually take action on it? Acceptance.
Yeah,
So thinking back to, all of the jobs I had, or back when I was in school, just how I operated differently, and maybe it was wrong. You didn't show all your work on this math problem, so the answer is wrong. Even if the answer was right, it was wrong. You didn't show your work. Well, I do mental math. That's how, it's done. And so some of these changes are very subtle and very small for acceptance, but they will absolutely make a difference in the world. Same with employers, understanding that maybe 9 to 5 traditional office hours aren't for everyone. You might have someone that thrives at night, and we know with the world and all the changes that have been made and so many people working hybridly, where's the fault in that? What's the why is that
I
a big
agree.
deal? So thinking about how we can make this awareness turn into acceptance so that we can actually see real change.
I love this. I get to work with Gen Z a lot, the Zoomers, and we every generation we criticize for some reason, but their
Right.
idea of flexibility and mental health coming first is so important. I'm a believer if the work get done, who cares what time of day it gets done? Let's just get the work done. I have one final question for you today. If your younger self were watching this podcast, what would you tell her?
Do I have to pause for this one for a second, Tom? Are you trying to make me cry on this podcast? Honestly, I know this, it sounds cliche. I would tell her, trust your gut. There were so many times in my life that I knew what was right, or I knew what needed to be done, or I knew I was capable. And I let validation from other people, looking for that validation from other people, sway my decision, or the lack of validation from other people. And whether it was trying to fit in, or trying to, trying to receive that validation, I maybe went against what I wanted to do or what I thought was best. And when I finally started trusting myself and understanding that I am smart, I am brave, I am valuable. And when I started believing that, that is
Yes.
when I saw real change. And so I wish I say I wish I wouldn't go back and change anything, because it all leads me to where I am now. But I hope that for my daughter, I hope that for my sons, that they will trust themselves more than they trust other people.
Powerful words right here for people. Thank you, Alyece.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you were here today. I have this feeling you and I might do a part two one day.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us, I know. Tell us about your business, your nonprofit, where we can find you.
Yeah, of course. So, business wise, socially.awesome, you can search that on just about any social media platform, and you can find me, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, probably primary, but AUSOME, so socially.AUSOME. And of course, sociallyawesome.com as well. You can see a lot more there about what I do, who I serve, and I have tons of free resources on there as well for neurodivergent entrepreneurs to plug into. And then as far as Cadence Corner, it's Cadence Corner MS, so CAIDENS, Cadence Corner MS. You can search that on Instagram or Facebook, and you can find us, or cadencecorner.com. But we would absolutely love to connect with anyone listening, whether we can serve you in your business or your children on the spectrum. We do right now, we are localized when it comes to hands-on services, but we have a lot of resources that we are creating and providing for people nationwide and even globally. Every in-person workshop we do here local to us, we record it, so we have replays. We have, resources that we can plug into for IEPs. A lot of those things are federally regulated, so it doesn't matter where you are. The rules are the same. So even if you're not in Mississippi, we have things that we can help you, and we can guide you on where to start.
Wonderful. Alyece Smith, thank you for being on Opening Pathways today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm just grateful to share our story, and and drive acceptance.
Yes, thank you. And
Thank
to
you.
my viewers, this is Tom Lenoble, and I'll see you next time.